Welcome to A Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's Lager Series episode, we're talking American Lights, the lightweight champion of lawnmowers and America's barbecue beer of choice. I'm Joanne and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. I'm back.
Yay!
I'm not dead.
Although by the time this comes out, like we'll have released. Because I think we should save this for when I'm actually in the US.
That's true.
I feel like where I'm at, but I feel like because I'm actually going to the US, let's save that. So you have been back. I mean, touch wood between today and the next time we record, which is very soon. I'm hoping you don't go off again. Welcome back.
Thanks. American light lagers. So I mean,
I've got my Sam Adams shirt on.
Oh, well done.
Even though it's not a light lager, but I've got my American vest on.
I slightly wavered there when I said on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer, because I feel like some people might be like, light lager, great beer in the same sentence. What are you talking about? But you know, there's room.
There's an audience
for
all
the types of beers. There's a beer for everyone.
There's a beer for everyone.
This might be the beers that people like. And do you know what? Craft breweries are starting to make light lagers. So, you know, let's talk about them.
Yeah, although it's really funny because on my notes, I padded in. So you've got the educational bits, but I padded in some bits that I just, in case you didn't say them, I was like, let me just make sure I get that in there. And one of the things on one of the beers I put was obviously what I put next to all the beers is like, okay, tasting note, like this is where we talk about that beer and the tasting notes, blah, blah. And the thing I put next to it was I thought I'd reached a low point before.
I don't know if that's true. I feel like there are worse ones that we could go for.
I mean, yeah, there's worse ones we could go for, but in terms of like low points on the podcast, I'm not sure. This is a thing that I
don't know. Let's wait till we get to American lager because, you know, we could end up with anything.
Brother, I just think, this is, as of the time of recording, this might be what we talk about on this episode. There might be some particularly low points that I never expected that we would be talking about on a craft beer podcast, especially one in the UK. Yeah. I mean, there might be some nostalgia. There might be some, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it makes for interesting conversation either way. And when this is out and I'm in the US, who knows what I'll be doing? Maybe I'll go and try all the American lagers that I can. And then just like maybe blind taste test them. Like, is this one good? Oh, what's this one? Maybe I should blind taste test a bunch of American light lagers to see if I can work out which ones I think are which. That could be interesting. And I can make Rick do it with me because he's been forced to do, but he's become, what's really funny is he's become so much more comfortable coming on the podcast. The best thing, I know this is not American light lagers, but we have to take a moment to reflect because this is the first time we're properly talking in a podcast space since the double header now a few weeks back. But when you were ill and I was like, we're gonna have to skip another week or two if we don't get a recording in, and obviously it's not fair to make you talk to me about the Tour de Guers and all those things. Yeah, that's what I was like. She already has to edit it. It's not fair to make her talk about it.
To listen about it or to see the pictures of it. So yeah.
So it's like it's not fair to also make you talk about it. So I expected Rick to be like no, and I went, you're probably going to say no to this, but what are the odds that you would record a podcast for me? And he was like, yeah, right. And I was like, that's it. That's I didn't even have to do a hard sell. And he was like, when are we doing it? Nice. It's so fair. It's the if the people want it. I got a message from Ruth that was like, it was a great podcast guest. And I was like, I'm not going to tell him that will go to his head. Absolutely not. So I assumed, to be fair, that those were going to be definitely not as much the chemistry that we have in recording episodes. So I kind of thought, this could turn out to just be a really shit 2 weeks of episodes. But
I think they were good.
you managed to salvage them anyways if they were bad, because you got some absolute fire clips for the last. The first one was just basically, it was just the tour goes as a bus tour for a bunch of beer nerds, and that was like that came in hot week 1, and then week 2 is talking about best flavoring. So I'm like, you did it. So well done.
Just, I'm self-taught editing, people. So, you're welcome.
I of course I didn't listen to it back, but we did go out to dinner with friends, and one of Rick's friends was like, I saw you were a podcast guest, and he was like, oh yes, like it was like starstruck. It was great.
Oh my god, that's
brilliant. God. But yeah, I'm sure we can talk more about I'm sure we could talk more about this on another episode where it's more relevant. But yeah, welcome back. Very happy for you to be back, but I'm sure I can coax them back on to do blind light lager testing with you. Maybe I'll get one of my siblings to do it with me. That would be fun.
So I did do a YouTube video a couple of years back where I got Gordon to put me out blind a bunch of lagers. So it's like, as a craft beer person, which one of these generic lagers that could turn up at your mate's barbecue would I recommend that you drink if you have to pick something else? And he thought it was hilarious because I was like, this one's not too bad. And it was Foster's, because I didn't know because it was blind tasting.
I feel like I would know the taste of that, and I'd be like, nah.
I was just like I did about 10 different ones and like completely blind, not a clue what it was. And I was like, this one's okay. Like, it's got a bit of flavour about it. And he thought it was absolutely hilarious. I think the one that I did pick out that was the best one was Moretti, because it's just slightly more malty than the others.
The thing is, when I go to the US, it's normally I'm there for family stuff, but I also try to make sure that I'm going to like loads and loads of craft breweries and doing all the drinking the beer that I want to drink. And I'm blessed from, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm blessed from being from a part of, I feel like a lot of the parts of the US have really, really good beer, but I am from a part of the US that is like very well known globally, some of the brews, to the point that literally one of them was like, we've talked about before, let's just ship our van to Australia because that's clearly how expensive. But clearly that says how well and how intense some of these breweries are. So that's normally what I'm drinking. I'm not normally going in, like, I'm not normally letting somebody just buy a bunch of Bud Lights, and like I might have back in the day, like I might have, before getting super in. Again, I don't think that was ever really an option for me because we always had UFO and Sam Adams and that kind of stuff, so that was never an option. But I think this time we're traveling around, and then we have a whole week at a house on a lake. So by the time you listen to this, I'm hoping that I'm sitting poolside living my best life. So I think I've got the time to kill to do this blind taste test of stuff without the ability to be able to go anywhere. So if you want to see me do this, let me know, and I will put myself in harm's way by doing a blind light lager tasting.
Well, shall we get started? Shall we crack the first one, and then we can talk about American light lagers and their beer style and the history of them, shall we?
Yeah, because we need to have the taster notes so I know what I'm looking for, because all I know that I'm looking for is vaguely shit. I don't know. Hot take.
Coldness.
Cold. Very cold.
So we have got Miller Lite.
I couldn't, with what we're drinking later, like, this had to be the one.
Yeah.
It had to be the one. I couldn't have picked a Bud Light or anything else like that.
I don't know if I've ever had a Miller Lite. Shall I check?
You've not gone to enough American barbecues, I don't think.
No, this is true. And the barbecues that I did go to were in Alaska, and we had lovely Alaskan beer instead.
Yeah, you probably didn't. You probably weren't drinking like Miller Lite and Bud Light. Okay,
no,
so we can all be bougie.
Never had Miller Lite, people.
Oh, I'm so glad to be able to give you. I don't think I am glad to be able to give you your first Bud Light. And this is the exact one that I wrote. I thought I'd reached a low point before. But this one felt like it had to be the one that we had anyways. Like I said, based on the next beer that we're going to have, but also because they are credited with being the first nationally available light beer. And this is all, I think a lot of it is due to their popularity was really like in the 70s, 80s. But they were introduced they introduced a slogan in 1975 that was basically credited them with popularizing the style. So I think that the light beer, because there's High Life, there's Miller High Life.
I've had Miller High Life.
Yeah, living the high life. And then they brought out in 75 Miller Lite, and yeah, the slogan was "Taste great, less filling," because it was great taste with less filling. But we'll talk about that when we talk about sauce. So let's hand it over to you for that.
Right, should we crack this open first then?
Yeah.
Little taste.
I need to know what glassware are you wearing? What glassware are you using?
I'm like, what are you wearing? One. Like, we're going to put it in a fancy glass with a stem, mate.
I appreciate that, because can I tell you? I've got out my siren glass that looks like a can.
Okay.
And do you want to know why?
Why?
Because I tried to find the most white trash beer koozie that I could find. And the best one was, I have a Miller Lite beer koozie.
Oh my God. That's so good.
So I couldn't put it in any other one. I had to go in this one because I can actually fit this in the beer koozie, sort of, because I also still refuse to drink it out of a can. So there we go.
I don't think I've got any
that to look forward to.
That are that.
I can double down on it as well. This is I'm fairly certain this is a NASCAR.
That's even better.
So yeah, I don't even know what that says. It's a sports thing. I want to say it says
sports thing.
I don't know. I don't know sports very well, so I think it says Brett Keselowski. I don't know.
NASCAR
don't at me.
Maybe?
I don't know. He's number 2, and it just I'm guessing it's NASCAR because it looks like a NASCAR logo.
I do have one that's shaped like a cowboy boot.
That would have been good.
And I've got one that is signed by all 4 members of a country band, and it's the band's branded koozie.
That's fair. Yeah, but then you can't I'm not a country music fan myself, but I wouldn't say that, that automatically equates. Country music doesn't automatically equate like white trash, but I feel like this is the perfect koozie for this. All right, I'm going to pour this now because I want to put it in my koozie, but I know I'm going to have to look at it. Oof, look at that. This is the question. The real question is, do I take a photo of it and do I check it in on Untitled?
Yeah, of course.
But I feel like the backlash is going to be so real. Can you imagine the people I've literally, again, sorry, not to scratch it, pick at a scalp, just coming back from the Tour de Gauze and being like, this and this and this and this, and then I'm like, and for my next check-in, Miller Lite, thank you.
I've checked in Budweiser and Bud Light before.
I do check in Guinness because I just I check it in because I'm like, well, I've had it. So, and I checked in a Lagunitas the other day, and I'm like, well, I did have it as a beer, so might as well check that in. I don't know, Miller Lite just feels a step too far.
You've got a real thing about Miller Lite. It's interesting.
No, but I think I'd feel the same way about Budweiser and Bud Light and all those. Guinness just feels different, and anything that's fake craft or was craft and then was bought out, I feel I don't think of it in the same way. But when I think of something that's very obviously Anheuser-Busch or anything similar, I'm like, oh. Anyway, style guidelines.
I see you. Right, so do you want the style guidelines before we sip it?
Yeah, because I want to know what I'm looking for.
So, this is from the 2021 BJCP style guidelines. American Light Lager sits under 1A. That's its designation.
The fact that it is in BJCP, right? And we've had other styles that are more that are not styles. There's more definition around a Miller Lite than there is around I don't even. What was the last one we looked at? And we were like, well, it's not really a style.
West Coast Pilsner.
Your West Coast Pilsner, which is like fine, but I get it. But also, there's more definition around a Miller Lite.
It's an American light lager is literally the first beer in the list of beer styles.
Cool.
This is under standard American beer. It is 1A American light lager. BJCP says it is a highly carbonated, very light-bodied, nearly flavourless lager designed to be consumed very cold. Very refreshing and thirst quenching.
How can you describe something as being like it's designed to have the least amount of flavors possible? Like, please, if you could remove nearly all of the flavors, please. That is ideally what we're looking for here.
Leading on from that in the comments and to just
My
add
rage.
to your rage. Designed to appeal to a broad range of the general public, to as broad a range of the general public as possible. Strong flavours are a fault.
I'm so mad right now. I feel like I'm just a ball of anger.
It goes on.
Oh no! How can it do more?
Right. With little malt or hop flavour, the yeast character often is what most differentiates the brands. Oh, brilliant. So
I've got some interesting fun facts around some of the yeast stuff as well, so let's hold the phone on that.
So on aroma, right? Well, let's do appearance.
Well, now I feel like I'm going into it going, well, look for as little amount of stuff as possible.
Right, so appearance, very pale straw to pale yellow colour.
Yeah, super pale, super clear.
White frothy head that seldom persists.
I had that.
Yep. It should be very clear.
It
is
very
clear.
clear.
Very clear.
I can see you.
Because it's so cold, I've got a whole bunch of condensation on my glass.
Oh, mine's okay, I think.
Aroma. Low malt aroma, optional.
Optional?
Optional.
What do you mean optional?
That's what it says. But may be perceived as grainy, sweet, or corn-like if present.
Yeah, tick, grainy. Well, I think it's more sweet
grainy.
and corn.
Sweet
and corn for me.
Light, spicy, floral, or herbal hop aroma is optional.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you gave me an option of something. Right. That's great.
I'm not.
I get fucking none of that. I get sweet and corn.
While a clean fermentation profile is desirable, a light amount of yeast character is not a fault.
I'm just picturing like, while you might get flavours, those are also optional.
It is optional.
Flavours that taste like anything are optional.
No, optional. The mouthfeel, before we get into flavour.
What's get like piss?
You know, mouthfeel, very light, sometimes watery body. Very highly carbonated with slight carbonic bite on the tongue. So I think this is the thing that I always find with light lagers, which is why I'm not necessarily a massive fan. That carbonic bite. It's like prickly, and you might perceive it a bit as bitterness. Like it's just like I am not a fan of sparkling water. Like it's that thing that you get when you drink sparkling water. That carbonic bite is kind of what makes a light lager, and I don't like it.
See, I hate sparkling water, with the exception being like Siren's hot water. Yeah, has literally been the only sparkling water and hot water that I think I've been like, yeah, actually I would drink this. This is nice. But I don't mind the carbonic bite, like in beer. In sparkling water, it's too much. I think in beer it never gets to that level of like sparkling water. It's manageable. What I don't like is when you have that and there's no flavor. Like the fact that you're like, oh yeah, flavor is optional. Like to me, that's the problem, not the carbonic bite. Because if there's flavors that work well with it, I'm like, oh, this is great. If there's no flavors, but they're like body optional, flavors optional, aroma optional, fun optional. Like I don't enjoyment optional. Like I'm opting out. This is not for me.
I'd like to fuel your rage a little bit further.
No, because every minute this sits here, it's getting warmer and warmer, which is also removing any enjoyment.
So let me tell you about the flavour, because that's gonna fuel your rage some more.
I'm in a rage.
Relatively neutral palate with a crisp, dry finish and a low to very low grainy or corn-like flavour that might be perceived as sweetness due to the low bitterness. Low floral, spicy or herbal hop flavour, optional, but is rarely strong enough to detect.
I love that. is optional. This is that's my favorite thing. I think it is optional, but of that option,
you probably won't.
Won't. Even if it's there, you're probably not going to detect it because it's so minimal. So that's why it's optional.
Basically, the hops are put in there to just as a preservative, like they're not in there for you to taste.
So they can be like, this is a beer.
Low to very low bitterness. Balance may vary from slightly malty to slightly bitter, but is usually close to even. High carbonation may accentuate the crispness of the dry finish. Clean fermentation profile. Basically, it's not really supposed to taste of anything.
I mean, the bubbles are still streaming. There's tiny little bubbles, and they are doing something. See what it doesn't taste like. Yeah, should we highlight what it doesn't taste like? Cheers.
I mean, there was a little bit of sweetness.
The worst part is like there's like flavor, and then it like there's a little bit of flavor, and then it immediately drops off.
It just immediately disappears. Like it's like on your tongue, and then it's gone.
Like before you actually like the fact that you're like, oh, it's sweet. Before I even got a chance to process what that flavor tasted like, I was like, oh, and it's gone.
Oh, it's gone.
Like going for another sip and it's gone. Like I got that carbonic bite, but it was nice. Like I found that was a nice. I like beers that are like that. Unfortunately, it then immediately turns into water after that. They might as well just handed me a water.
Yeah, it's just like it just reminds me of like regretting buying crap lager. When I was at university.
I thought you were going to say it reminds you of regret. And I was like, oh.
I'm just like being like, oh, yeah, there's an offer on beer. Like, I'll get some beers. Oh, no, why did I do that? Because these taste of nothing.
But don't worry. There's Noble Saz hops in it. So
are there?
Read the side of the can. So the side of the can says, inside is a fine Pilsner beer brewed with the highest quality ingredients. We use choice hops from the Pacific Northwest, as well as Noble Saz hops, and deliver more taste, aroma, and colour with only 92 calories per 12 ounces. So,
mate,
don't worry. They do use Noble hops in it, as well as hops from the Pacific Northwest.
Hello, Dr. Doom and Gloom is back. SARS is dying out, so soon they won't even have that in there.
No, that's actually what they want, because they're like, give us less flavour. There's too much. We need. They're not adding the hops for the flavour. They don't care. They're like, fuck it, we'll use Tango, we'll use whatever at night. That's too much, actually.
Tango's too much. They're not going to use Tango.
They couldn't use Tango, it's too much.
Tango's too
they
much.
Would be like, why don't we try no hops? Just remove any element of enjoyment from it. Insanity. I'm gonna hold on. Now that I know the colour and stuff, if I'm gonna have to drink this, I need to drink out of my beer koozie.
Just putting it in a koozie.
I need to put it on my very special, awesome koozie. But it's a bit of a tight squeeze, but I'm going to make it work. Oh, all right. Let's dump the rest of it in there. I'm not going to drink it all, so it doesn't matter. I didn't even take my photo, and I just chucked it in there. Fuck. Should I take it with Should I take a photo with the beer koozie on? Because that's going to make it better, actually. Yeah. No one's looking at my Untapped from Miller Lite photos, being like, "Oh, look at the clarity on that bad boy!" Like, I'm not being funny. I should not even put it on the Miller High Life side. I should put it on the NASCAR side.
Do you want to know a little bit about the history of American Light Lager?
I do. While I sip on this, I'm going to face this towards you.
Thank you. Enjoying NASCAR.
Split NASCAR. That made me appreciate it even more.
So Coors briefly made a light lager in the early 1940s. But modern versions were first produced by Rheingold in 1967 to appeal to diet-conscious drinkers. They only really became popular in 1973 after Miller Brewing acquired the recipe and marketed the beer, as Tori said, as for sports fans, and with the slogan, taste great, less filling. So you could like drink a lot of it while you're watching your sports. The genre became one of the largest sellers in the United States in the 1990s. And then I also found a nice article by M. Sauter, Pints and Panels, on the Alcohol Professor. So I'll link that in our show notes. So that slogan, having the lighter lagers, became really, really popular throughout the 1980s and 1990s. But the Miller Lite was actually overtaken by Bud Light, and that became one of the top-selling beers in the early 2000s. And Bud Light even knocked Budweiser off of the top spot because it was so popular.
That remained one of the for quite a long time. It's remained the top beer.
Yeah, when this was written, it was still the top beer. So I don't know if it is today, but it was.
I think.
Did you see?
So I didn't double check it, but to be honest, what we'll talk about in a bit, anyways. Like when I was doing research into some of the bit, I think because it's something that shouldn't be a controversy, that was a controversy that we're not really going to talk about on this episode because I think it's probably warrants a whole separate conversation and advertising and everything else. But because of weirdly, because Budweiser have tried to be more inclusive and actually do really positive things.
Yeah.
Their target audience, or not it's not really their target audience, but it is their main consumer
demographics.
Demographics is what I meant. One of their main demographics was like, nah, I don't really want you to be inclusive, and then they boycotted. But my favorite part of that is how many of those people that are their main demographics that were upset about them being more inclusive were like, I'm boycotting, and then they'd like show videos of their fridges to be like, look, there's not a single Bud Light in my fridge, there's no Budweiser in this house, and then they'd be like, yeah, but there's another brand that's also owned by Anheuser-Busch, and then there's that one that's also owned by Anheuser-Busch, because it's only skin deep. They didn't actually give a shit.
Yeah,
they were just like, I don't want to drink the gay beer. Like that is literally what that audience is like. So yeah,
my favorite was actually a video that I saw that someone shared recently. I saw of Kid Rock on the news, saying about how he no longer supported Budweiser. He never was buying Budweiser anymore. And the newscaster was like, aren't you wearing a Budweiser hat right now? And he absolutely was. He hadn't even noticed.
Double brilliant.
He put a Budweiser hat on. It was so great.
That is double brilliant. I love that. But all this is to say is it was the top selling beer, and then there's a potential that over the last 2 years or so, roughly, that the last few years potentially they've been knocked off the top spot, and that's just because of the fact that they have done something in a step towards a positive thing, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Because people are horrible.
Yeah, we don't.
This is why we can't have nice things, because everyone's horrible.
Yeah. So interestingly, in this little article from M, she finds American Light Lagers a joy to drink. Like, and this is why there are all these different beer styles, because there is something for everyone. An American Light Lager might not be for us, and that's fine because it's for other people.
Well, I'm gonna say something.
Oh.
I'm not hating sipping on it. I'd rather this than a Foster's. And I don't know if it's because I've got my beer koozie on, and I know that there's, noble hops in it and all these amazing things that I know about Bud Light. I mean, Miller Lite, whatever it is, same. But actually, I can sip on this, and it's not bad. And I'm not genuinely, I am joking. I'm not judging anyone that does enjoy it. I just definitely don't reach for it. But what I would say is I would prefer, so some of the other American Light brands, like the big, for those American listeners that know, some of them exist over here in the UK, some of them don't, as far as I've seen anyways. The other big brands that are out there, really, when it comes to American Light Lager style, it's, you've got Bud Light, obvious, Coors Light, obvious. Do you get Coors over here? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, we used to. I'm pretty sure that at one point my dad bought enough, crates of Coors to get like a sweatshirt
Nice.
with Coors on it.
That was a thing.
I wore the Coors sweatshirt for a really long time because it was a really nice sweatshirt.
I think there were like marketing campaigns for that I found when I was looking as well. There's Michelob Ultra, which was that a thing over here?
Yeah.
Amstel Light.
Is it, or did I have it in the US? I don't know. I've definitely drunk a Michelob.
I think Amstel is over here.
Did Amstel do a light one? I didn't know Amstel.
Yeah, Amstel Light. Natural Light, aka Natty Light. For those.
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've drunk it.
Yeah, that's the one that I just, that would be the one that tastes of regret, I think, for a lot of people. Bush Light. I don't think you have Bush Light over here.
No.
Keystone Light. I don't think you've got Keystone Light.
Definitely not.
PBR Light. I just drank normal PBR.
Yeah.
I accepted what I was. I just
saw PBR in a pub when I was in York the other week.
I'd get it. I probably would get it for the nostalgia. I'm in York next weekend at the time of this recording.
I didn't get it. I got a Vault City beer instead. But
I guess it depends on it's got to be the right time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then another one that was listed was a Yingling Light Lager, which that's interesting that that's listed amongst the others, because when we did the episode that they had the Hershey's one, we dug into the fact that actually technically from the guidelines in the US, the Brewers Association in the US, they're technically considered like a craft brewery as opposed to
because they're still
macrobrewery.
family-owned, aren't they?
Yeah, so interestingly, that it's interesting to see, not funny, to see that Yingling's sort of like, of the light lagers, that's the one that you kind of probably wouldn't expect to be on that list, but it is. But yeah, those are all the other kind of big main brands, and I would actually argue I would rather select from that list than British macro lagers. Like if you told me this, so this is a good would you rather. I think we're going to start doing a good would you rather segment and like table topics, like Joe and I have been talking about it. We'll introduce it in another episode, but that is something that we could do. But this is a good would you rather trial. Would you rather only be able to pick from that list, and we're going to take Yingling off that because that's not a fair comparison. So Bud Light, Coors Light, Michelob, Amstel, Natty Light, Bush Light, Keystone. I'll even leave PBR Light on there, or Miller Lite, or you can only ever have those beers, or Carling, Foster's, San Miguel. I'm trying to think of like what else is over here that are like standard pub affair that you like, Birra Moretti, I guess, but that one even feels a bit like.
I mean, I don't mind a Moretti though.
I don't mind a Moretti. That's what I'm saying. Even that's a little bit too. I'm trying to think of like the standard ones. What do we have? Like Foster's, Carling.
Peroni, San Miguel,
Stella, San Miguel.
Yeah,
I feel like there's another one that's Carlsberg, Kronenberg. Like, would you which set would you rather choose from? And we're not talking about like Bud Light made in the UK or some, like we're talking about the ones made in the US, because we all know that when it translates over, it just doesn't. It all tastes different.
Don't know. That's a tough choice. I don't mind I wouldn't mind a Coors Light. Like I'd drink a Coors Light.
I think I'd take the US
if it
ones.
Was available.
I think I'd take the US ones.
But I've not tasted many of those to know whether I would pick them.
I think I can confidently say I would go US ones for sure.
Whereas I know like a Kronenberg, not too bad. Carlsberg, not too bad. Carlin and Foster's. No.
Foster's, yeah. Like, what if it's either like, what if you're pitting like, you can have a Bud Light or a Bud Light versus a Foster's. But you have to pick one, and that's what you can drink.
Water instead?
No. You got. I mean, we know one of them basically is, because all other flavors are optional.
I don't know. I think I just wouldn't drink a beer if that was what the options were.
That's fair. I don't think I could. I think I probably would go Bud Light, because I think I'd probably choose anything but a Foster's. That's just me personally. I just couldn't. Yeah, to be fair, this is quite light and easy drinking, so it's not as bad as I made it out to be. I'm being dramatic. Guys. But no, exactly what you said about like lagers as well, just to add to that. Like, so the intro, kind of said to you like before we started recording, I was like, it makes sense, I promise, about the lawnmowers and the barbecue beers, because like it's so funny how much, it's almost like an unnerving amount how much people relate like American light lagers to mowing the lawn and dad jokes and King of the Grill and, oh, look at this man with his Asics on with his, you know, best like family says I'm a keeper t-shirt making like like hamburgers.
Family says I'm a keeper.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just thinking about the time that we bought my grandfather a shirt that had a big bass on it, and it said my family thinks I'm a keeper.
Oh.
And it was so ridiculous.
That makes more sense when you say there's a fish on it.
Yeah. But it's like dad jokes, cheesy dad jokes, dad attire, with his jorts on and everything else. Like that's what that is what's marketed. That and like sporting events, social events. A lot of it is very like a cultural icon for the association with American leisure and lifestyle. And so I think it almost becomes bigger than the beer. It's about the brand and the lifestyle that is selling you as well, more than just the beer. Whereas I think like some of the craft beers that we think of as well, it's not selling you a lifestyle like a lot of these are effectively trying to sell, or like their marketing is all big. Like you could see when you look at the ads for some of them, this beer, this company is targeting this particular audience and this particular audience, and they've tailored all of their marketing to it to sell that whole lifestyle and that whole thing. So interesting. But you tend to see it a lot with like backyard barbecues, beach days, American football games, sporting events, tailgating. Like all of that is so big when it comes to like the Super Bowl and tailgating.
Yeah,
just
like,
insane.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that the reason that some of these beers are so popular is because of the branding. It's got nothing to do about the beer or the product in the can. It's all about the branding, the way they've been marketed to people.
Well, absolutely.
And didn't that start with? I haven't researched this bit, so I'm
going off cuff,
going off cuff here, people. I feel like a lot of this started with because they started branding it to women who were buying the groceries. And it was like, your man will like this beer. And so it was like, rather than branding it like, nowadays, you've got your customer profile or whatever, and you're doing it to this person who's going to drink it. It was actually to the housewives that were going out and buying all of the groceries. And it's like, this is the beer for your husband.
Yeah.
And that's how it ended up in so many fridges, because women were like, oh, I'm told my husband will like this. And that's why. I don't know all the history of it, but I do know that is an element that comes into play with it as well.
But yeah, just really interesting to think about, like the overarching of like this is selling you a lifestyle, and like this is a sports thing. And also, what's really interesting, I'm not sure we didn't necessarily talk about the backstory of American light lagers, like particularly in the sense of like it was made because they were like, oh, it's lower calorie. Did you say that?
Because it's lighter. It was designed for the diet conscious drinker. So yeah, it is.
So
calories.
Because it was less calories. What I found was really interesting. Again, we talk about the ads and stuff. It's really particularly fascinating. You'd think, based on the fact they market it to the health conscious and it's less calories, that like societal pressures would go, oh yeah, I'm going to market this specifically for women so that they can feel like they're being healthy and looking after themselves and all this other stuff, which we know is bullshit anyways. But from a societal marketing perspective and the lifestyle brand, like that's what you would assume is the case. But like the reality is, like so much of these adverts, like what this is geared towards and what these beers represent in American society, it's like so ingrained in this like masculinity and I found that was so interesting looking into those bits as well.
Shall we crack a craft version of this?
Yeah, because weirdly I was saying at the start, like, I'm not going to drink all of it, it's halfway gone, so
let's get our craft version. So we've got Good Times by Duration. Like, I think it's amazing that Duration make an American light lager. I love it.
And I also love that it's the champion of beers. So the reason I got the Miller Lite was because Miller High Life, I believe, was the champion of beers. So I thought, if I'm going to get something to accompany this Duration, it's going to have to be a Miller. And then that was kind of before I even knew about the whole thing about Miller being the first nationally available light beer. That came afterwards, but I just went, champion of beers, it has to be a Miller. So it ended up working out really well.
I just saw that the duration is 4.2%. Didn't actually have a look at the Miller, but that's 4.2% as well. Looking at the stats on the BJCP guidelines, ABV is 2.8 to 4.2. So both of these are at the top end of that ABV scale.
I know, that is wild. Right. Absolutely wild. We're really pushing the boundaries on ABV. And yeah, the fact that, you know, we've got to crack it quick because you've got to serve it cold, or else it's got to go right in the bin, doesn't it?
I mean, I have had some of this before. Oh, she is fizzy.
Oh, I like that nice little crack that just happened. This is what I find out my glasses are.
Mine's a bit foamy, but it might be I've got dirty glass.
Dirty and horrific. Oh, mine's all right, actually. Look at that. What a beaut.
I need a flake in mine.
Yours is flaky. Shall we give yours a moment to settle down?
Mine a minute to settle down. It is much paler in colour. It's like a lemon yellow.
I mean, I can't really see it anymore, but it is definitely, from my memory, this one is definitely much, much, much lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. It is super, super light. The carbonation bubbles in this one, I'm going to say there's a really interesting pattern in this for me, where it's like almost gone in like a slow spiral up. But it's very, very small, very slow. Well, I'd say probably medium pace moving carbonation bubbles, but so much less than what was in the Miller Lite. So I'm hoping that it's going to be slightly less still carbonated, but maybe slightly less of that that maybe you don't enjoy.
Interestingly, I'm getting a little bit of a lemony smell.
I'm getting more of like a fruity smell, but I don't know if it's because I just put on cherry chapstick. But I am getting a very... there's definitely more aroma for me. I'm almost getting a very soft, fruity note to it. Oh, actually, the more I smell it, the more I think maybe that's my cherry chapstick and I'm getting more grapefruit potentially.
Why did you put on cherry chapstick before you started doing beer tasting?
Because we just had a minute as we were getting the new beers out, and I was like, my lips are a bit chapped, and get some chapstick. But then it's dickhead day because now I'm like, oh, it smells like fruit, and then I'm like, no, that's me.
Dear listener, that is not an advisable tip.
I thought I could work around it.
Don't put chapstick on.
Or but just do unscented. Don't be like me.
Well, but don't, because the oils and in it will kill the head on the beer.
Yeah, but if I'm smelling it, it shouldn't make a difference except for the fact that mine's fruited.
You put it on the rim of your glass and then it kills the head. No chapstick, no perfume if you're properly beer tasting, my love. I've still got a massive head on mine.
I have none, so there's no head to kill. None.
You can have some of mine.
If we were here and I could reach through. But yeah, I do sort of get that citrus. I think there's a little bit of like a grapefruit element to me.
Maybe that's why I'm getting more than lemony. All right,
can have a sip of it.
See if I can get through.
See if you can cut through. Get the flake out.
Got some on my nose.
No, it's quite lemon. There's almost a bit of lime in it.
Quite lemony, right? Yeah,
I would say lime.
I like it.
I like it as well. But I feel like for me, I'm not saying this is what it is, but I feel like for me, this falls more in the realm. I mean, I'm only one sip, but more in the realm of shandy in terms of taste for me. But I think it's because it's that lemony lime taste to it.
Like, it's tasty, but this is the thing, right? It's not supposed to have any taste.
There's too much flavour. The flavour, it was optional.
Too much flavour. The optional flavour is there.
Only some flavours that were optional, and like real flavours were not even optional. They were undesirable.
Right. But it's a good beer. Like,
it is a good beer.
I would definitely do this.
And I think the carbonation levels are just so much smaller. Like there's so much less of the carbonation levels that it does make it.
Than the other one?
Yeah, I think it's less carbonated than the other one, but in a way that it's still there, but it's more manageable. I think as well, maybe it doesn't help because the other one has not
I
as
don't
many
think-
flavors.
I don't think you get that carbonic bite, I think is the thing.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about carbonation levels, there was a nice note in the article that M wrote, and it was like, in America, most beers are carbonated to 2.2 to 2.8 volumes of CO2. And a volume is how much CO2 is dissolved in a keg of beer. So 1 volume of CO2 would be that the keg is filled completely with CO2 once. 2.2 would be that the keg is filled 2.2 times, and so on. The more CO2 dissolved in the beer, the more carbonated it is. So 2.2 to 2.8, they're usually, that's fairly typical for light lager, and it gives them almost a soda-esque quality. So they are on the higher end of the carbonation levels, along with beers like Hefeweizen is quite highly carbonated as well. You know, think about all the flavours that you get in a Hefeweizen.
Oh yeah.
Compared to
so many
one of these,
flavors. And the body. To be fair, actually, the more, I think it was like the first sip or two, there was more of that like citrusy, like lemon lime. And I think that's kind of gone away. And I'm getting way more of like a dry finish, which I think it's interesting because there's quite a dry finish on the duration, which sort of takes out some of those like flavors. The difference is, what's really interesting is the Miller Lite, it's like you take a sip and you go, flavors immediately gone, water.
Completely gone, stripped from your mouth.
Whereas the duration, you kind of go, there's a really nice flavor, and then there's the dryness that pulls the flavor out, as opposed to it just being like carbonation bite gone. This is like, it gets progressively more and more dry the more you're drinking it. And I could see how that dryness just makes you want to keep drinking. And it's a pretty Moorish beer. Like, I quite enjoy it, but I want to go back to the Miller now and just see how.
So there's, I think as well, I'm getting a little bit of that kind of corn sweetness in there, which is what I mean, which is part of the style. It's not a bad thing. This one's just got flavours, man.
Interestingly, though, going back to the Miller for a sip, what's interesting is I have historically had friends come around, they've brought Foster's, and then I've been like, here, just try some of my beer, you'll like it. And they've tried it and they've been like, oh, something that I know is a style that they like. Like, I wasn't like, here's something completely wild and out of left field. I was like, I know you like wheat beers, here's a wheat beer, here's a really well done, no frills wheat beer, try this. They're like, really, really good. And then they went back to drinking Foster's and they were like, I can't do it. And I was like, yeah, because it's terrible now, isn't it? Like, you've had other things and you've had too many flavors, and now you're trying to drink that again. You go, no, I can't do it. Whereas, like, going back to the Miller Lite, it's not, I feel like I can drink that. Like, it's not the same as when you go from another lager and then try to have a Foster's and you just go, oh, that's too sweet and it's so unbalanced. Surprisingly, and I'm shocked that I'm saying it, the Miller Lite, it is still drinkable after.
It's because it doesn't taste of anything.
Yeah, but it's also not so. There is like that little bit of like a small bit of that sweetness and that sort of corny element to it that it surprisingly doesn't taste horrible. I mean, I would rather have the duration, obviously.
Obs.
But I know I started coming in hot on Miller. Don't actually hate it. I was just being dramatic.
While we're talking about corn, do you want know a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is when we need to have a sound. This is when we need to have the soundboard of the kid going, "It's corn," and playing the song. Yeah, tell me about corn.
So, the malt base for American Light Lager is basically just pale malt. But to make it lighter and to like thin out that body, they use fermentable rice or corn. So by using that, the rice and corn adds fermentable sugars, which then adds more alcohol, and lightens up the body, because actually the rice and corn don't add anything to the flavour. So by adding a chunk, and I think it's usually up to like maybe 40% of the malt bill can be rice or corn. That gives you the fermentable sugars to create the amount of alcohol that you want without adding too much colour or too much flavour.
Because those are
which
both
is what
bad.
makes it nice and light. The hops are added early, but they're, as I said, they're only really there for it to be a preservative. And as we said, if you can taste the hops in it, it's not true to style. This is a fault.
It just kills me every time that it's like flavour, fault, negative.
And in this article from they usually use an American lager strain of yeast, and it's fermented cold for 7 to 10 days and then lagered, usually held at like near freezing temperatures, and they're usually ready in about 3 weeks before packaging. Because they've got this corn or rice in it, you might get a bit of DMS, which can come across as like either a kind of green apple flavour or like tin sweet corn. You might get, and that is, you might also get acetaldehyde, which is like properly green apple. That is actually just kind of part of the beer style.
To be fair, though, I kind of so having only done an off beer tasty, like an off beer course once for International Women's Day at Double Barrel this year. Literally, I can say that those flavors though were not the worst of the flavors. I could deal with those in comparison to some of the off flavors. I was like, bring it. Like I was like, I could see how, especially I think as a person that likes funky and weird and like all those type of things. Like for me,
if you want like a nice clean lager and then you're getting like funkiness,
oh no,
that's not right.
Absolutely, that's not right. But it is that thing of I'm like, oh, but there are. I think that I would take that in comparison to some of the others. Like there was one, I took a tiny sip of it and I was like, immediately no.
Wait, was it butyric acid?
Yeah,
yeah.
I just the second someone said the next one is this, I was like, immediately no. Yeah, I've seen all I need to see, and I don't need to see anymore.
It is really interesting when you do off flavors, because like you then have to pick up how you pick it up. So like acetaldehyde, the kind of vocabulary to describe that is usually green apple. But when I smell it or taste it, it tastes like green apple washing up liquid, and to me. And then DMS comes across as tinned sweet corn specifically to me. Like I was just like, no. Some people it's like creamed corn. We don't really have cream corn over here, so I don't actually know what that smells like.
I think it's just like corn, like tin sweet corn, but like amplified. I don't know how to describe it.
A tin sweet corn, like I don't really have tin sweet corn. I have like frozen sweet corn.
Yeah, I do as well.
But when you open a tin of sweet corn, and you get that kind of really sweet, corny. Yeah, that's what DMS smells like.
But that's insane to me. But like, yeah, it should be like that. That's the same. That's normal.
A little bit of that might be acceptable,
but not too much.
Like with cask beer. With cask beer, diacetyl is acceptable at low levels. A little bit of butteriness.
Yeah, I don't
popcorn.
Know. I like buttered popcorn.
Butterscotch.
It's like certain beers you can get away with it because you go, oh, that works really well, and then other ones, like especially if you go, this is meant to have no fun, minimal fun, and then you're like, but there might be some bits to it. Like, well, yeah. But I guess to be fair, like with some of the aromas of some of them, I don't feel like I would go, oh, this is wildly out of place as a tasting note. Like when you smell some of the light lagers, you kind of go, oh, I kind of expected that.
Yeah.
So it's all right. You don't really think twice about it. Whereas I guess if you were like, oh yeah, here's a farmhouse saison, and then you're like, tastes like tin sweet corn, you're a bit like, yeah, maybe not the one.
No.
Do you want some fun facts?
Yes, please. I always want fun
facts. All right. So I've just got a handful of fun facts for you on this one because I started down the fun fact path and it led me someplace way different. But yeah, so in terms of fun facts, hold on, I'm going to top my drink up slightly while we do this. Boop. So this is what I thought was quite interesting. There's been some modifications that have been reported within some of these bigger American light lagers that are being produced, and this includes, this is what I thought was, never heard of this before, but genetically modified yeast had been used to help ferment the beer faster and more efficiently. And in addition to that, there was like slight colouring processes that beers were being undergoing to guarantee a consistent look, because as we know, the perception of how a beer should look is just as important as how it tastes. So like there are some, I don't know what these modifications are. This is like, I don't have a proper article, so I feel like it's something to dig into more. Maybe something that should make its reappearance on a news article discussion episode. But yeah, using modified yeast to basically ferment faster and modifying the colour so it looks like it's supposed to. I thought that was really...
Was it making it too light, so then they had to add a bit of colour to it?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it was that it was too dark or too light, but I think it's not even that it's like one way. It was because I think with some of these bigger brands, you go, every can needs to consistently be the same colour. So even if it's something that like you might not even notice massively, unless you had a can side by side, I guess it's more like if you brought a pack of beers over to your friend's house and yours was slightly darker to the one that they had, you'd maybe notice and be like, oh, that's like what's going on with that. So I imagine for them, it doesn't even have to be a massive difference. Like it's probably a level of just a mild difference in the colouring between batches. They want to make sure that they're all uniformed and they're all looking the same colour. So
I mean, the big breweries do make beer, like they'll make a batch that's higher alcohol and then liquor it back with, like, they'll add more water to it to make it up to the size of batch they wanted, but it's more efficient to brew it at a higher alcohol and then knock it back down. So they got all the tricks.
I can imagine, like, that makes sense to me. The second somebody's like genetically modified yeast and it undergoes a colouring process for a consistent look. Shot is just interesting. I thought that was quite an interesting one. Another one, talking about Budweiser quite a lot today, but with their desire to be the first beer on Mars, they have got involved in researching how barley is grown in space, because they put a bit of barley into the payload of SpaceX 13, which was launched in 2017, to see how it would react in a microgravity atmosphere. So they want to be the first brewery in space, the first one to make beer in space. So they have contributed to SpaceX 13.
Is Elon not going to take his cyber beer up there?
No, Daddy Elon, I think that failed. No? I'm not sure that went down well.
I've seen drunk it and it was terrible.
I've seen the comments about it, and yeah, maybe he was like, if we can just see how the barley is grown in space, maybe it'll be better, and then I won't let them go to space. I will take my own beer to space. But yeah,
this cyber hops.
I've got an article of a video for it that I've shared there for you to have a look at. If it's worth sharing, share it out. Okay. So another one with the weird flavours that people have tried for light lagers, because obviously what's interesting kind of defeats the purpose. Light lager is meant to have as minimal flavours as possible. People have made light lagers with flavours such as like a pickle beer and a hot dog water.
Ugh, hot dog water.
Yeah, that to me is like a brother, like why? Yeah, no. The second, like even pickle beer, I don't like pickles, but I've had pickle beer, cucumber beer, that's fine. Hot dog water, that is where I draw the line.
No, ma'am. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's not the one. So this is another one I thought was interesting, given what we're going to drink after this. During Prohibition, some breweries survived by producing beers that were 0.5% ABV. They were called like it was thought of as a quasi soft drink at the time, but they were essentially just very light beers. Like they were used as soft drinks effectively. Yeah. But that was how the breweries could stay afloat. And I feel like we're kind of seeing a resurgence of that now, even though there's no prohibition necessarily, but because there's a drive to be healthier and not just go, I'm going to have less calories, or there's a drive to be healthier and to cut back on dependencies from alcohol. And so some breweries are diversifying and doing the 0.5%, so people can still enjoy the taste of a beer, but they don't have all the same kind of repercussions as when you're drinking a full fat beer, so to speak. But I thought that was quite interesting, because I didn't know that about prohibition. Because when you think of prohibition, at least for me, I always tend to think of like spirits. I never once considered breweries at all.
Yeah, because they couldn't produce during the time, could they? Because no alcohol. But you hear a lot about bootleg.
You hear about bootleggers
don't really hear
brewing,
about...
distilling in their bathtub, but you don't hear about like home brewers brewing at home, which I think that would be a super killer topic to hear about. If there's anyone that has any books on that, let me know, because I think that would be super, super interesting. But yeah, I just don't think you hear about that a lot when you talk about prohibition. So I thought that was a fun one to share. So I don't have the name and details of this person, and I'll tell you why. So I saw in passing that it was mentioned that in 2017, a man set the world record for the most light beers drank in one sitting. And that was 116 cans of Bud Light. And that was at a single event. Now, I couldn't find the name of the person, and I couldn't find out if they were like the 330ml cans, the tall boy cans.
The 330.
Don't know. Wanted to know more about it. So I started Googling to be like, I need to find out who this man is. But every single thing that came out was related to Andre the Giant, because they basically were talking about how much Andre the Giant could drink. And on some level, I don't know if he did have a world record. I couldn't find that there was an actual world record. But everyone said, like, yeah, basically Andre the Giant would drink so much in one sitting that at one point he drank 156 beers in one sitting. Now, I don't know if those were like, because he used to drink like Stein's beers, I don't know if it was like Stein's, glasses, cans, whatever. I've shared a Reddit link because I opened that one up to try to verify if somebody had said, I mean, you shouldn't use Reddit to verify, but I was hoping somebody might have shared a link to something else. Yeah. So I was like, let me look through there. And I was seeing like ridiculous, like, I don't know if they're just solely myths or whatever, but it was somebody saying he went to the doctor to have surgery, and the anesthesiologist was like, I can't work out how much will put you under because you are absolutely massive. What do you normally drink? And he's like, well, it takes two liters of vodka to even make me feel fuzzy. And I was just like, oh my god, this man is a machine. So it just completely, just as I was trying to look for this world record like holder of 116 cans of Bud Light in a single sitting, Andre the Giant just came in. And this is the rabbit hole I went down, is then I started looking up weird things about Andre the Giant. So I wanted to share that Reddit link because that was insane. Absolutely insane. Some of the stuff, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just urban legend, but some of it I was like, oh my god. I thought other people might find it really interesting about Andre the Giant. So look at that, digest it, let me know your weird Andre the Giant facts. I am all about it. And then the last fun fact isn't really a fun fact. I shared it because I wanted to talk shit about it, and I thought you'd be the best person to talk shit about it with. Okay. So I saw him passing on an article. Don't remember what the article was now. Because doesn't matter. Rabbit hole. Studies have shown that lower alcohol content in light lagers can actually make you less likely to experience the notorious beer goggles effect, which might just save you from some regrettable decisions. That made me irate reading it. I was like, I
feel like that's not true.
I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off. Also, what's the scientific evidence here? There was none provided. I was so annoyed because I was like, also, I'm going to now Google about beer goggles because there's such bullshit. First of all, the fact that they were like, well, you'll make less regrettable decisions drinking light lagers. You're going to get the same level of intoxicated. And if you are a shitty person, you're going to make shitty choices. That's what it is. Yeah. But then I started Googling, like, someone's obviously disproved beer goggles for sure, because that is not a thing. And yeah, it's like, I've got The Guardian. I mean, The Guardian. The
Guardian.
Sky News, like all these different like articles are like, oh yeah, no, there's researchers. They've done the story about beer goggles being debunked because it's not, because the thing is, they're like, yeah, okay, it impairs your ability to see facial facial, what's it called when you've got like a symmetry, facial symmetry.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you might not have like the same facial symmetry recognition as when you're sober, but it has nothing, there is no study that says that you find somebody more or less attractive based on how much alcohol you have. What it means, your confidence level changes and your judgment is impaired. So you might make a decision to go and do a thing or talk to a person or whatever that you wouldn't have, but it doesn't actually change how you view a person physically. And also, I found that bullshit, the fact that that was even a talking point for American light lagers. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I needed to I needed to share this fun fact because it's not a fun fact. It is bullshit. And I pulled up 2 articles of many to be like, beer goggles aren't real. Get over it.
This episode is brought to you by Female Rage, everybody.
I'm not even... Everyone should be outraged by it. It shouldn't just be female rage. But like just such like the sexist angle of like, oh, I can't believe I slept with that mistake last night. Like, oh, you're the mistake actually. Like actually it's you. So that personality was the mistake. The beer goggles were on and she couldn't see how much of a dickhead you were. So that's fine. So yeah, that enraged me. Back to the beer chat.
Right. Shall we try our last one? Now, whether it's real or not, you will not get beer goggles with our last one.
No.
Because it is a non-alcoholic offering.
So, we gave you the Miller Lite, treating you to the opposite of the high life. We gave you the good times. Now we're giving you the low life.
The low life. This is from Mash Gang. It is. I do like how they've like... I'm going to hold the 2 cans together.
I mean, let's hold all the cans up together. That is... Woof.
Yeah.
They are all very Miller-centric, aren't they?
Yeah. There's a colour palette that works for light beers, and it includes blue. Sometimes it includes red. There's definitely gold in there.
It's white, gold, and blue, and a touch of red. Just like a chef's kiss, like a Paul McCartney chef's kiss of red. It's just like, mwah, just like a bit of red.
Now, Gordon had this the other week.
Did he?
When we were at low key, and he didn't mind it.
Oh, that's big.
I know.
Breaking news!
Like praise, right? Gordon didn't mind it.
Nice. Did he give you tasting notes?
It tasted like beer.
That's good. That's normally,
so...
under normal circumstances, I would go, cool. Under these circumstances, where it's a, what is it, 0.5%? 0.5% ABV, he said, tastes like beer.
I know.
Well done, Mash Gang.
High praise.
It's
right?
very high praise.
Good job, guys.
You did it.
Right. It's the same colour as the Miller. It's got a nice little head on it. The smell... Smells like tea.
The smell, it smells really herbal to me.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though,
I don't mind it.
What I've found with Mash Gang is that I always tend to find, actually, if I leave it longer, the flavour develops in such a way that I'm like, oh, I actually really enjoy it. So, I mean, maybe we haven't left it long enough, but...
Didn't mean to mature in the can a bit.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it smells quite herbal to me. Oh, I enjoy it. It smells like a nice smell. Yeah. It's not quite what I'd be expecting, though, for a...
It reminds me of biscuits. It reminds me of rich tea biscuits, actually.
Oh, got him.
Yeah. Which I'm not mad at. I love a rich tea.
Weirdly.
Ooh,
I will say, I weirdly always get a bit of jamminess to it, though. I don't know where that's coming from.
Side note, rich tea with a bit of Philadelphia on it.
I don't know if I've ever had that. But then I'm weird with my cheeses and everything, so...
Oh, yeah, you don't...
I'm like, cream cheese belongs on bagels. Change my mind. But like Boursin, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Anything goes with a Boursin if it's got garlic and herbs in it. Let's go.
Oh, there used to be this great bagel shop in Alaska. No, I'll totally go.
That's just America. America's just there's a great bagel shop. America.
No, like, so it's in Alaska. Like, bagels made on premises, all the different types of bagels, but they also made their own cream cheese. Raspberry cream cheese.
That's just a bagel shop, girl.
On a honey wheat bagel. It was so good.
I think it's just because over here you get garbage bagels.
Yeah,
So
we do
like
get garbage
everything is
bagels.
like any bagel shop in the US is like, this is
Yeah.
amazing because
true.
it's just a normal bagel shop.
Yeah,
They're
no,
all
it's
that
true.
good. They all have their own cream cheeses. They all have all the flavors of bagel. Over here, it's like you get like 5 flavors best.
Not even.
And that is like, yeah, that is a best case scenario.
Regular,
plain whole grain,
Yeah.
cinnamon raisin, onion bagel, and on the
I've not even seen.
I see an
not
onion
even seen an
bagel.
onion one
Yeah,
anywhere.
I see onion. On the odd occasion, you might get. Oh no, so sorry. You might get more. You might get an everything bagel if you're lucky, and that's been imported for that week from the New York Bagel Company.
Or it's like
you might get a
specialist bagel shop.
cheese top one, a 5 cheese
Never
one
seen
or
a
whatever.
Never seen a cheese
I've
bagel.
seen that. And
You went to the fancy bagel
one
houses.
time I saw them import like the New York Bagel Company ones where it was cookies and cream. But let's just be real.
Cookies and cream?
That one was just a normal ass bagel and it had bits of like chocolate chip in it. So you're like, what are
no.
we doing with this?
What was that?
Let's be honest, what are we doing here? Like, what's that, brother? Like, what is it? I could do so little with it. And even like normally I put peanut butter on that. What are we doing here? Because it wasn't even fulfilling for a peanut butter element to it. It just felt wrong. I still have some in the freezer because I just haven't wanted to touch them. But I can recommend, and I know that you can't do this, Costco have got into the bagel game. They are on top of the everything bagels. I buy them, I put them in the freezer. When you want one, you take it out, you leave it like 2 hours. Good. Recommend. As a bagel lover from the US, I've had all the bagels. Love them. That everything bagel from Costco just hits different.
Good advice.
Big recommend. But not for jokers, just not
bagel,
Costco good.
No,
okay.
And there isn't a Costco anywhere near me.
It's okay. Next time I'll load up and I'll be like, I got all these things from Costco.
But the everything bagel's got onion powder in them.
Oh yeah, you can't have that.
I can't have. That's why I can't have everything bagels. Which is why I get excited about a honey wheat bagel with raspberry cream cheese.
Honey
wheat bagel.
Literally Condomaniac, one of the good brands.
I'm drinking this beer
over here. They do everything bagel. They do the good bagel. They do the bad bagel. And the good bagel is just like a normal...
What's the difference between a good bagel and a bad bagel?
Because it's the seasoning, and you have the good bagel, and that's everything bagel seasoning. That's just normal everything bagel seasoning. Then you have the bad bagel, which is like a little devil. Yeah. One of them's got little angel wings. The other one's a little devil. Yeah. And it's everything bagel seasoning, but then it's spicy.
Oh, okay.
I got them both.
Of course you do.
They're used for different things. Sometimes I put it on pizza. Sometimes I put it on I top my everything bagel with more everything bagel seasoning.
I really want a bagel now.
The beer.
Anyway, back to American Light Lagers.
I'm just waiting. I'm just biding my time. I've got 4 weeks, then it's Bagel City. Especially when I'm there just for a week doing nothing. I'm like, we are bringing the bagels.
It's fine because you're going to bring me back a heady topper, so it's fine.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
And maybe some chocolate, apparently. Who knows?
We'll find out.
We shall see. So the smell, it's kind of got like the biscuity notes gone off now, I think.
Yeah, it smelled initially for me. It even smelled almost like a bit jammy, which I don't know where that came from. It just smelled a bit jammy.
I'm getting a bit of corn now.
That's gone, and I think I got. It still is quite herbal to me.
Yeah.
But I do get more corn now than I did initially. Yeah. But it's still, I think the herbal element is the most heavy.
I've got it in the taste as well. But I get a bit of that kind of corny graininess, and then there's that herbal note in the back. I like it. It's got flavors, so it doesn't sit within the guidelines.
I think there's not enough of that carbonic bite either to go with it,
Yeah.
which I think if it had a little bit more carbonation, it might make it a little bit better for me. I don't dislike the taste. I don't know if it fits that particular style that we're talking about. I'd say it's
probably, I feel like it feels more American lager than American light lager, which is fine.
It's
got the flavors.
I do like the label.
The label's great. Gang, it's 0.5% alcohol. Like, I would drink one of these if I was driving.
I think, to be fair, like Mash Gang is the brewery that I would go to. I've got some of the cinnamon roll one. They do the Cinnabon one.
I've got one of those.
Got one of those.
I picked it up because I knew you'd bought it.
Well, do you get FOMO? You're like, okay, I haven't had mine yet. I haven't had mine yet. We can do a whole thing with it.
I did, because you said you'd bought one, and I got FOMO, and then I was at Worthing. I was at Worthing Tap Takeover, and they had them in the fridge at the old bike store, and we were there to drink Left-Handed Giant, who was actually on the taps, and I was like, I will have a table beer, and can I have a Cinnabon from Mash Gang to take away, please, because I have FOMO because my friend has it.
I haven't had it yet.
And my dad was with me, and he's like, "Oh, you taking that one away?" I was like, "Yes," because Tori bought one and I didn't have one, so now I've got one.
I think, to be fair, I asked if you wanted one, but then like I had to put the order in, and then by the time you came back, I was like, oh, I already put the order in. Sorry.
It's fine. I got my own.
Did a cheeky little order. But yeah, but I do like. I think Mash Gang, for me, they are the ones that taste the most.
Yeah.
Beer, like they scratch the itch more. So I think for this one, for me,
in the body.
To be honest, though, to me, like this one, I think a lot of like alcohol free or no low alcohol options tend to have that like herbal element to it. I think this one has that. What I will say is a lot of them land too sweet. They taste like
Worty.
Yeah, which I mean I don't mind because I like that, but I like it in the right like I like it when it's actually like fresh. I don't
in the right context.
Yeah, and I like it when it's like fresh, not when it's just like I don't want a can of like watered down. What? But
do you not?
No, like because that's just they've taken that and then they've just made it. And I understand why, because of the brewing process and all that. But what I find is even when Mash Gang has one that has that like herbal element to it, it's still drinkable. Like to me, I still enjoy drinking this, even if it's not tasting the way that I expect for that style. I still enjoy it and I'd still drink it. Whereas there's other alcohol-free options that I'm like, nah, can't be doing that.
Yeah, I like it. I think they do a good job with the body on all of their beers. Like if it's a stout, it's got a good stout body. You know, if it's a hoppy beer or a lager, then it's got the right kind of body for that style. For a light lager, I think this needs more carbonation, but I'm not mad at it because that's one of the things that is not my favourite about light lager. So, you know, if we were being BJCP judges, this would be outside of the style guidelines. But do we like it?
Yeah, I don't not like it. And to be fair, like the more you drink it, the more the herbal note kind of dissipates a bit. So
I'm enjoying it.
I'm going to go back to the Miller though, just really quickly.
Just for a little.
It's warmer now. Still isn't unenjoyable in the way that I find there's other ones that when they get warm, I'm like, big no, can't have it. Actually, don't mind it, even warm. There's so like, you know, when you go to like a gig and you just are there, you're like, I can't be bothered to go back to the bar, so I'm going to nurse this for as long as possible so I don't have to like leave from this space. And then it ends up just getting like warm and then you go, I don't even want to drink the rest of it now.
Yes.
I actually, with the Miller, I'm actually okay with it.
That is a useful tip there.
Yeah, if you're going to get something at a bar and you don't want to have to go to the bar a lot of times, Miller's, I guess, the one if that's your options. I mean, I was going to talk to you about ads, but now I feel like we're so far in. Let's leave that out, or we can talk about it another time because I feel like I can't do it justice in the amount of time. But I will do is like preview because when we were talking about this, some of the fun facts I was looking at led me down a path of looking at ads for Budweiser because there was it started off with one ad and then I started looking into it and I would say King of Beers is what Budweiser's known as. I would say King of Ads. They have been making
King of Branding.
They have been making these, whether you like them, dislike them, feel neutral about them, and I'm not going to talk about like all the ethics of Budweiser or anything controversial like that. Like I'm taking controversy and how you might feel about the brand aside, talking solely about the adverts. Like it is undeniable that their adverts have had such a massive impact. They are iconic.
Cultural impact.
They are pop culture icons that have influenced and shaped like how that lifestyle brand is sold and how people think about, like when they think about beers. I looked through and I started looking through like all the brands and I was like, how many of these other things could I say like, oh, for this brewery, I recognize this brand. Like Budweiser, it's like nearly every marketing campaign. I was like, yep, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
And the only one I really want to talk about that I feel like I can wait to talk about the rest. That's all fine. Obviously, we all know about the WhatsApp one. We don't have to. If you've seen any 90s movie, you know what WhatsApp is, or any early 2000s movie, you know what WhatsApp is. But the most impactful for me, and I appreciate it is not geared towards women. Real Men are genius. Listening back, I appreciate that they started off. I'm just going to tell you about this one. They started airing in 1999. This will be my last fun fact for you. They started airing 1998. And it was originally branded as Real American Heroes, but I don't know from which point they changed from Real American Heroes to Real Men of Genius. Either way, it was always a Mr. whatever. There was no like Mrs. as far as I can recall. So as far as I'm concerned, it was always Real Men of Genius.
Women didn't drink beer in the 90s, Tori.
Apparently not. Early 2000s either. Definitely not their target demographic. So that's why I said, let's take out all that side of it. But like these ads would be, so they were all run on like, it started off on the radio, and then in 2001, they adapted it for TV. These were Bud Light presented, but in 2001, they adapted it for the TV in the UK, but it was changed because over here, so it had to be for Budweiser sponsoring it, because I didn't realize this, Bud Light at that point in time in 2001 was not distributed in the UK. So when you hear like when you watch, I sent you sort of the link to all these, and it changes between being Bud Light, because Bud Light presents, and then it changes for some of them to just Budweiser, and that is because it wasn't available for distribution. So that was interesting, and the whole premise of it is they'll be like, oh, it's just like an ode to realistic, like down to earth, like the everyman who's invented something like sliced bread or something. My top favorites: Mr. Giant Taco Salad inventor, loved it. Mr. Jeans shorts wearer, and I love the fact they coined the term jorts, because you just have the feeling like, I really love your jorts, and that was like, I think about that anytime I see somebody wearing jorts. You had Mr. Way Too Much Cologne wearer, Mr. Really, really, really bad dancer. Those were all just absolute. They're so stupid. They're so stupid. And like when I listen to them back, the fact that they got the guy from Survivor, who you would know if you've listened to Eye of the Tiger, they got him to do the singing. He is like doing a singing hype man type thing for the actual announcer, who's like giving a speech about why this person, like why we're cheersing this particular person in, I guess, like men's history. I don't know. But it's like I listened to it and I was like, none of these, even though obviously it's focused around the men, none of these for me, and I'll let you voice if you feel different, nothing felt like malicious or like sexist, or like not overtly sexist. They were just fucking stupid, and they just made me laugh.
I just love that they are obviously just taking the mick out of their like target demographic. And
100%.
And those people are like, yeah, that's me. I drink that beer and that's me. Like,
yeah, like I relate with the Mr. Bad Toupee wearer. Yeah, that's
right.
Or you go, me. Oh, I know that guy. That is definitely that guy.
Yeah.
So like Rick came in because he heard me, like I was, for research purposes, was like, let me find this one. And okay. So then it was just playing as I was writing things out on the script. And he came in, he's like, that sounds really familiar. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I know those adverts. And it was like such a recognizable advert. Like, it was the cologne wearer one. That was so. Rick was like, I know someone like that, and it was like your foghorn of a scent announces your presence from 4 blocks away. And Rick was like, we all know someone like that.
Yeah, like more than anything else, the branding and the advertising from Budweiser is so well known. Like. Doesn't matter what the beer tastes like because the branding made people buy it.
I think the later in life it got as well, the more it sort of got into more of the controversial stuff. But like 90s Budweiser, like there was one, we literally have to dedicate like a whole episode for just like Budweiser lore, because there's a whole in the frogs and the lizards. So I sent you the frogs and the lizards.
Yeah,
and
everything you sent me, I remember being on
so
television.
you had the frogs, which first came out in 1995 at the Super Bowl,
Budweiser.
and it's depicting the three frogs, which was Bud, Weiss, and and they said their names, and it all eventually came together where it was Bud, Weiss, and that was like I would argue that was like the first advert that I recognize, like from my memory, as being something that like, oh, I recognize that, and I know what the frogs are. And then that evolved into like, then there were lizards. I think specifically they were chameleons, and they were like, it was another Super Bowl ad that was made later. They were called, fun fact, they were called Louis and Frank. So in case anybody ever gets that on a test,
pub quiz.
So like there's Louis and Frank, and they're there in the background watching the frogs talking shit about how they were like, we should have been cast for that. Why weren't we cast? We could have been the Budweiser lizards. We didn't have to be the Budweiser frogs. And then later down the line, they bring in a ferret who is effectively a hitman that the lizards hired to take out the frogs.
I do remember that. I think I do remember
And the storyline has progressed from 1995 to whenever the fuck year, because I think the lizards were introduced in 1998, so that's like 3 years later. And then however long after that, the ferrets came into play. And by the end of it, the ferret is there. Eventually, the frogs go on to become like Broadway tap dancing stars at some point. It's the Wikipedia page for this, and following the timeline is fascinating for an advert campaign. They are nothing but telling a narrative in a consistent storyline, and I feel like that I can't do all of their marketing campaigns justice. So yeah, that is the real men of genius I had to talk about, because that one, it did make me laugh. Like, it's so dumb that I'm like, I don't want to like it. And then they start, maybe there is ones that are really horrible and I just haven't heard of them. Like, I haven't heard them. The only horrible ones I've heard were just horrible because they're so cheesy and bad. And then I'm like, all right, you got me. I'm laughing. I'm invested. I'm singing in my head Mr. Giant Taco Salad Inventor as I'm making tacos.
Well, there you go. I hope you learned a little bit about American Light Lager and
a lot about advertising.
The importance of advertising for this style of beer, because I think fundamentally this style of beer has, of all beer styles, really relied on advertising.
I cannot wait for a whole separate episode about advertising, so I can talk about some of the ridiculous campaigns that are here and some of like what these other brands have put out there and how it's like so clearly for specific target demographics. I will say the only one that is actually focused on health and lifestyle is Michelob Ultra, and that's all I'll say.
So Tori, if people want to ask you more about all this advertising and the rabbit hole that you went down looking at it,
or Andre the Giant, please tell me Andre the Giant facts. Please share that Reddit link to the Andre the Giant facts. Like, honestly, I love all kinds of like random bullshit, but those things in particular, I really went down a rabbit hole more than I expected today. So I could happily talk about all these advertising campaigns, and I want to do more digging and learn even more about it. So if somebody wants to talk to me about it and wants to fall down this rabbit hole with me, you can come find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. You can email me any article links or anything you want at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com. You can get both Joe and I if you were like, you know what, definitely do an article based solely on Andre the Giant and his beer drinking habits. You can ask us special requests for that on A Woman's Brew on Instagram, Facebook, X, but we won't answer there. You can email us at awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's everything, because I'm so used to now doing your plugs that I also wanted to throw in TikTok and Pinterest, but we are not on TikTok and Pinterest. But Joe, where can people find you?
If you want to come talk to me, I'm Love Beer Learning on Facebook, Instagram, X. I'm not going to look there. TikTok. I've not been on TikTok for a while because they started pulling my content because they're weird about things like that. Or Pinterest. So you can find me there, or probably just come find me on Instagram as Love Beer Learning. Or you can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. Come read my blog. There's some interesting beer stuff in there. There'll be one up about Sonoma that I put up recently. If you're interested in
I did see
the
that.
comparison between keg and cask and can and AF versions. That was fun and geeky. Come and have a read about that. Or you can email me, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. Right.
I take back all the dramatic things I said at the start about Miller. and it's just me being dramatic.
Tori redacts it.
I redact it.
All right, so she's going to go finish her Miller.
Yeah, I am actually.
So,
Cheers.